chemistry or atmospheric sciences? Okay, okay. In the INSCC building, were you? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I lived there for 5, 6 years, pretty much. Cool. Yeah, give it one more minute. There's a reason why I'm opening. I left the door open. We'll close it in a minute, but then we'll open it about every 10 minutes or so. It's because of this. That's some really fun work we did over the summer here in town for the Utah Symphony. Okay. Did you hit record? Okay. I'll make sure to trim that part when we're editing. Okay, okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tony Saad. Here's my face again. I'll be your professor and teacher and mentor pretty much for life. In my opinion, once you teach someone, there's an eternal relationship that is built between the student and the teacher. Um, I want to clear the air first, pun intended, with to go through some of the logistics of what's going on in the world with the COVID stuff, etc. I am vaccinated. My family is vaccinated. I have two young kids, a 40-year-old and a 1-year-old. And we have an immunocompromised person at home. So we try to keep them very safe, and they're vaccinated too, but they have to take now more doses, etc. And so, I'm cautious, but I'm safe, and you should be comfortable when I'm here and talking to you. If I am ill, I will let you know, and I hope you would do the same. We'll go over some of these guidelines from the university, and we'll get to know each other now. But first, I wanted to talk to you about just this University of Utah guidelines. You will find those on the syllabus. So this just came down to us from university governance. There's this really cool website, coronavirus.utah.edu. I don't know your specifics, but you might be extremely risk averse or not. If you go on that page, you'll get a lot of information. You get some numbers about what's going on at the university. Okay, and guidelines and tips on what to do. What I really like is the asymptomatic testing, which is free, which is really cool. I typically do, every week or so, I just go do an asymptomatic test, just, to make sure that if I am ill, I know some faculty in our department have a lot of medical conditions. So I want to be cautious, like, hey, I'll reschedule the meeting with them, you know, who knows? So there is a lot of free asymptomatic testing that is available for everyone. You just go make an appointment. If you are not vaccinated, it's highly encouraged that you get weekly asymptomatic testing as much as you can, because that helps you figure out, or like, yeah, I have this thing and I'm asymptomatic. I may still be transmitting to others, so maybe I'll stick around at home. And there's guidelines on how to essentially quarantine, etc. More importantly is the contact tracing, which is essentially a self-reporting thing. So you can tell me, you can self-report to the contact tracing team. If I don't have it here, I have it on the syllabus, where the numbers you reach out to when if you are ill. And for whatever reason, if you got, clearly it's not only COVID that's floating around. Just like, the last 3 months, I'd be like, wake up with a sore throat. It's like, what's going on now? It's common cold, right? It's floating around, and because we all have been isolated last year, these usually benign viruses are coming at us with a vengeance because we pretty much lost some immunity. So just it would be nice to know. And if you are feeling sick, stay home. All the lectures are recorded. okay? And we'll make sure that you get up to date with everything. And then when you're feeling better, just come back. So typically, I think with the flu or with the cold virus, once if you don't have fever anymore, you should be good to go. So that's kind of the guideline at childcare, at least. So usually like a day or two, and then you're feeling better, you can come back. It's up to you. But definitely, we encourage you if you're feeling ill and sick, whether COVID or not, please, let us know. And if you want to stay away, stay away. That would be highly recommended. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about COVID-19 dispersion modeling, which is something that my group did. And Hayden sitting back, he's going to be your TA. He was one of the students at the forefront of this study. So in last June, just when the pandemic was starting to kind of take over, things started in April, started shutting down. We started teaching online, and we stayed at home, etc. And then we get an email from the former president of the University of Utah, President Dave Pershing. He is a faculty in chemical engineering in our department. Great guy. He emails me and my colleague, Professor Sutherland, and says, hey, I was contacted by the Utah Symphony, and they wanted to figure out if they can perform safely, okay, if they can perform safely at their stage, or at least rehearse. And they thought they could do this social distancing thing, and we proved like social distancing with fluid flow, social distancing is meaningless. I'll give you an example. If I'm standing here and I have a fan over there, and you stand 6 feet away from me, and I sneeze in that direction, and the air is blowing this way, you could be standing 20 feet away, and you're going to be bombarded with this barrage of expiratory droplets, right? So social distancing, you gotta is not sufficient in and of itself. You have to understand the fluid mechanics, which is great because we are here to study fluid mechanics, right? So I thought this example is going to be really motivating. The problem with COVID is that unlike the flu and the cold, its primary mode of transmission, we call that the vector, is airborne. So with the flu and the cold, the large majority of infections take place through surface contamination. Okay, so someone sneezes, you're on the bus, and like an hour later, probably the lifetime of the virus. I don't know, maybe we have a virologist over here. You go and touch, and then you put your finger in your eyes, for example, you get the cold. Okay, with COVID, it's different. Even as you are talking, there are very small droplets that come out of your mouth. We call those expiratory droplets or respiratory droplets, if you want. They're so small and tiny, you don't see them with the naked eye. We call those aerosols. Now, on each one of those droplets, if you are sick, there's one or more viruses attached, okay, and they fly around with the air. So by definition, aerosols are very small droplets. They just move around with the air, right? And COVID, that's the primary mode of transmission for COVID. It can happen with the flu and the cold, but COVID, it's more so because it tacks on to very small droplets. The way it's built, maybe the flu and the cold don't tack on to the aerosols as much as the COVID does. And so the concern for the orchestra was, does anyone play an instrument here? You do. Okay, what do you play? Saxophone. Okay. So can you tell us a little bit about the reed setup and the elbow and what happens with the respiratory droplets and how often you need to clean up your instrument? Yep. So what's your name? Pardon me? Sam. Okay. So what she's saying is that, sorry, I can't hear you with the mask and the earphone. So with wind instruments, there's a lot of droplets that are forming, large and small. So these are machines essentially that produce aerosols. So imagine you're sick and you're sitting there playing your saxophone or your oboe or your bassoon or your trumpet and going pa 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 pa, and you're flooding the entire stage with your respiratory droplets. For strings, they can be masked. Okay, for wind instruments, there is a way to mask them, but it destroys the acoustics, right? And puts so much back pressure on the player, they might have a heart attack. So it's a no-no. They want to be able to play without any masking on the wind instruments while keeping everyone else on the stage safe. So they asked us, can you do this? And we said, okay, how can we approach this? We are in engineering. Our bread and butter is fluid mechanics. I specifically do computational fluid dynamics, which is, whatever you're going to study here in this class, I take all of these equations and solve them on a computer numerically, okay, with numerical methods and high performance computing, all that fancy stuff. So how can we take this public health problem? How can we use our knowledge to solve that problem? Well, simple, very simple deduction process. If virus is attached to respiratory droplets, and respiratory droplets are aerosolized, and aerosols move with the air, and therefore, if we can predict where the air goes, we can predict where the aerosols and therefore the viruses go. So we've translated the problem from what might have been perceived as a virology or epidemiology or infectious disease problem to a fluid mechanics engineering problem. Aerosols, by definition, they move with the air. So all we need is a little tracer from each instrument. Imagine they're emitting smoke or ink. You drop a little ink in a cup of water. You see how it moves. You start stirring it. You see how it moves with the liquid, right? Same thing we can do here. Okay, here's an example. This is a two-dimensional simulation of like a, incense stick, for example, that is emitting some smoke. This is the smoke. Red is high concentration of smoke, and white is like somewhere in between, and blue is background. There's no smoke, okay? So this is just a simple little illustration of a tracer, okay, that is moving with the flow, okay? It's just coming up. Now we thought, if we change the airflow, if the aerosols move with the air, and if we predict the air, we can predict where the aerosols go. To mitigate any potential accumulation, we were thinking ahead because we think we're smart. If we change the airflow, we can change where the viruses go. That's why I have the door open. And you see what we did with the orchestra. Same example. Now I'm going to put a fan over here. The example I just gave you, okay? What's going to happen? You know this. Look at that, right? You know this. We all know this. If you've burned incense at home ever, this is what happens. Same problem, okay? So we looked at Abravanel Hall. This is the main hall, main orchestral stage for the Utah Symphony. This is Utah Symphony. Beautiful place. We spent a lot of time over there taking measurements, etc. This is actually, if you see up there, that's Hayden. He's sitting back. That's what, Hayden, 32 feet high, 40 feet high? Yeah. None of us had the guts to do this. We had him sign like in contract, like, if you fall and die, we're going to leave you there and we're going to go. No, we're joking. It's a very safe platform, okay? And, we took turns in going up, take some measurements. But notice over here, these are the inlet vents. This is where the air is coming in to cool the stage, okay? There's a door over here and a door over there. And there are some return vents in the back. So air comes in, instrumentalists are playing, they're emitting respiratory droplets. The air coming in is gonna mix and move around the stage, right? And therefore it's gonna move these aerosols everywhere, okay? And these return vents, some of the air goes through the return vents, okay? So let's see what happens. This is a view from the baseline calculation. This is only the airflow. Only the airflow. The colors you're looking at are colors of speed. Just how fast is the air moving, okay? Red is high. It's about, on this scale, it's about 3 meters per second, okay? And white is somewhere in the middle, about 1 meter per second, and blue is about 0.2 meters per second on this scale, okay? But this gives you a characterization of how the air looks like. It's crazy, right? It's mixing and turbulent. You don't feel this when you are standing there because these small effects going on over here are you can't feel those little effects, okay? There's such low speed, unlike when you're in an airplane where each turbulent bubble or each little localized turbulence is maybe an order of magnitude different in speed than the mean flow. So you feel it when you're flying. But standing over here, you don't feel anything. But notice here that there's like these crazy structures forming. There's a big recirculation going on over here. You see the pattern. If you look at the large scale pattern and the large one taking place in the back, there's some air returning over there. But when we see this, if you have a trained eye, we already knew that this is not going to look good for the orchestra. Okay. Here's another view. Okay. Streamlines, we'll talk about these as we go through the course. Okay. Now we said we did the airflow, we calculated the airflow. Now I want to look at the aerosols, the same thing as this little stick emitting the smoke that I showed you earlier. Each one of those little cylinders is a representation of a player. The strings are out front, and there's a flute over here. You know, these are the flautists. Okay, they're playing the flute. You see with the flute, there are two spots. There's the opening next to the mouthpiece, and then there's at the end, an opening at the end. And, you know, some instruments are emitting aerosols, the others are not. So let's see what happens. The colors you're looking at are concentration of aerosols. So that's particles per liter. Red is 10 particles per liter. Orange is 1 particle per liter. And yellow is 0.1 particle per liter. Okay, so for the orange, every 10 liters, you have about 1 droplet. Okay, that's accumulating. But this is huge. This is a lot. When you look at this, you know, and this is assuming the worst case scenario that all players are playing at the same time. Okay, and this was a no-go for everyone. Okay, we did some infection risk, etc. What we don't have to discuss this in detail, but the point is, if you look at some time average map of the infection risk of individuals, this is what it looks like. Okay, there's a significant accumulation of concentration of aerosols in the breathing zone of players, and this was not good. Okay, so to mitigate the accumulation of aerosols, we looked at low-cost mitigation strategies. It was a very small project, short period of time. Okay, to give you an idea of how much time and effort it took us, the simulations we did for this work, if we were to do them on a single computer, like my laptop in the back, 4-core or 1-core, let's take the 1-core, but very, very powerful computer. The simulations we did would have taken 57 years, 57 human years running nonstop to do all of the simulations that I'm showing you. Okay, we did them all in 6 weeks because we used parallel supercomputers, okay? But that's the amount of effort it took to get this done, okay? So the first mitigation strategy was we manipulate the HVAC. We open doors, for example, and throttle the AC. So rather than having all the air return through the return vent, let's get only 80% through the return and the rest goes out through the doors, okay? So that was a good plan, but it wasn't sufficient. Okay, we needed to reseat the instruments. And the idea is simple. If you happen to be transporting someone who is smoking in your car, you drive an Uber and someone's smoking, what do? You open the windows, right? And you ask them to sit in the back away from you. So that was our second mitigation strategy, is let's rearrange the players. And this is exactly what we did. Let me see. So if you notice here, we opened the doors. Remember the arrows on the door? So we opened the doors over here. These are huge doors. And they produce like a huge return vent for us, additional return vents. And we repositioned the orchestra. We put all the trumpets and the flutes So we put the flutes over here. All the wind instruments, notice, they are arranged near return vents. So that's a rule of thumb for you. If you are in an area and you're nervous, you don't want to get sick, and there's potentially high infection, you go to a clinic. Like the other day, I took my kid to the clinic, and they combined the urgent care clinic right next to the pediatrics clinic. I was like, are you out of your minds? And there are like 17 COVID patients over there. I'm like, oh, what am I gonna do? So I went. I like picked I stood next to a return vent. So and under an inlet vent, so I get a clear vector of air. I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about my son. So anyway, this is it. And then when you compare with the original, this is the level of risk reduction that we accomplished, okay? Now, my purpose of showing you these slides is not to waste your time, is to motivate you, one, to the study of computational fluid dynamics, okay? And to encourage you about being just cautious and, don't lose your mind over it. Just be mindful. Yeah, this is interesting. When you look at this, you can make a rational decision, because always our perceived risk is generally higher than it actually is, or lower than it actually is. So reality is somewhere in between. Okay. So anyway, take this with a grain of salt. You will find my full talk about this on my YouTube channel. Okay. All right. And this is the team, etc., etc. Okay. So now we can switch to Hayden. Do you want to log into Canvas so I can see the syllabus, please? Okay. So now we can get to know each other a little bit more. Okay. I would like to go around the room and get to know you. This is a small enough class that we can get to know each other. I'd like to learn more about your backgrounds and what research you're doing, and see if we can help you with a project throughout the semester to help you with your potential research. You might be starting your first year, etc. So I'll tell you about myself first. Yeah, my name is Tori Saad, and I'm an assistant professor in chemical engineering here at the University of Utah. My background is in fluid mechanics and applied mathematics. I do a lot of mathematical modeling. I love equations. I love math. And because intuition, it takes time to develop intuition, but math, you can see it immediately. And so I like that approach to engineering and engineering science. And if we can go around, if you feel comfortable, just telling me your name and what department you're in, who you're working with, you're a first year student, second year student. We can start with you, if that's okay.
I'm Rashmi, and I'm a first year PhD student in Department of Chemical Engineering.
Okay. Are you working with someone? Have you?
No,
Not yet.
not
You're
yet.
just okay. Great.
I'm Hafiz. I'm first year PhD chemical engineering student. I'm working with Dr. Kalamithi.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Elaha, and it's kind of hard to pronounce, but everyone calls me Eli.
Ellie.
This is my second semester. I'm actually a first year PhD student in chemical
Okay.
engineering. I'm working with Dr. Kelly and also Dr. Powell about the energy efficient policies and the air quality assessment.
Okay.
I'm Luis, and this is my very first semester in the chemical engineering
Uh-huh.
PhD program.
Okay. Great.
Hi, my name is Jessica. I am an MSBS student in the chemical engineering department, and I'm working with Kiki Fairfax in the medical school on Shoshana.
Okay.
My name is RT. I am a
I was looking for you. I saw you on the roster. I was like, "Where's RT?" He was my student in numerical methods. So
very good professor.
thank you.
I'm a first year PhD student and I'm working with Dr. Powell on building electrification.
Okay.
My name is Yunji Chen, and I'm a first year PhD student in chemical engineering. This is my second semester. I'm working in Dr. Cody Powell's group.
All right.
Hi, my name is Jing. I'm a first year PhD student from chemical engineering.
Okay.
My previous work is mainly focused on the aquatic
Okay.
Now I'm looking for the interesting book.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Chelsea, and I'm the first year PhD student, and I work with Dr. Juana in chemical engineering.
Okay. Welcome. Yeah.
My name is Yang Pyong Jo, and I've got master's degree in chemical engineering from South Korea, and now I am the first year graduate student in University of Utah. My major is like process simulation and optimization, so and I'm looking for some groups to work with.
Okay. Yeah.
My name is Harama. I'm also from Korea,
Uh-huh.
South Korea, and I studied electrochemistry
Okay.
during the master course.
Mhm.
And I'm looking for a professor who work with me. And thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Rina. I'm from China.
And
My master is got from Kenyon University,
Mhm.
and now I'm working with Professor Dr. Gao,
Okay.
also the chemical engineering department.
Okay. Great.
Hi, I'm Sam. My pronouns are they, them. This is my first semester at University of Utah in the Chemical Engineering PhD program, and I'm working with Dr. Holmes on atmospheric transport of wildfire particles.
All right. Thank you, Sam.
I'm Nick. I'm a first year master's student in chemical engineering.
Mhm.
I did my undergraduate here at the U in chemistry.
Okay. Welcome.
My name is Abria. I also got my undergrad in chemistry and at the U and also getting my master's here.
Excellent. Okay.
Hi, my name is Sufyan. I'm from Bangladesh. This is my first year in PhD in chemical engineering.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. And Hayden.
I'm Hayden. I'm from Pakistan students. I'm learning my third year.
Yeah.
My third year in the program, and
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. I hope we will have a productive semester. So I am looking for students, so we will have a chance to talk and discuss. I'm looking actually for a student to continue the COVID modeling that we did because these simulations are expensive. Okay, so imagine we can do these simulations very quickly, like fractions of a second. You come into a room, you take a measurement, maybe take a picture, okay, and you put in the doors, the inlet vents, the windows, and you ask the computational engine to run some scenarios for you. And we have some ideas on how to do that using some data analysis and basic potential flow theory, which you will learn about in this class. So if you're interested as we go through this semester, come and talk to me, okay? And I would be happy to just kind of expose you to some more material on this. Okay, so let's go through the syllabus very quickly. Course Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10:45, 11:35. I saw some of you already looked at the syllabus, so that's great. I just want to clarify a few things on it. There might be some typos, and I'll fix them as I look at it again because this was clearly copied from last year and with some updates for this year. Please, so my office is 2286. If I'm there, or if you're walking by my office and you have time, please say hi. Okay, I like to get to know you. I like to just chat with you, and you're also in the department, so we also care about your career and how your PhD is going. So you want to talk about anything you want. There's something bothering you. There's a career question. Just come and chat. Okay. For my office hours, they're on Mondays from 2 to 3:30 p.m. Or I might have to change those as needed. You know, if you have children, you cannot plan anything more than an hour ahead of time. So I might have to change an office hour, but we can do over Zoom as well if you're not comfortable coming in person. Okay, we can do that over Zoom. It's up to you. Very easy. We can do a group office hour over Zoom. Whatever you like. Just email me. Use my Canvas email, please. Just communicate with me over Canvas. This way I can kind of focus on what your needs are for the class and for other items you want outside the class, okay? Hayden is your TA. Also communicate with him through Canvas. I'm hoping you all have had your Canvas set up already. Okay. For his office hours, they're going to be in this class, which is great. Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 1 to 2. We tried to do it right after class, but there's another class taking place at 12, so we moved it from 1 to 2 p.m. I do want you to come prepared with specific questions. And this is actually a good advice for your PhD. You know, you need to be clear and to the point. Don't come in and say, hey, I was looking at problem one and I don't know. That's very ambiguous, okay? Come in instead and say, hi, Hayden, look, I was looking at problem two and this Laplacian equation doesn't make sense to me. I am unable to do it in cylindrical coordinates and specifically this term is bothering me. Or, and then, you know, you can have a productive conversation, okay? Try to be mindful of other people's times because, you know, we have 1 hour or 3 hours a week, so 1 hour per session. So try to be to the point. We try to, you know, limit these discussions. I mean, there it's your time, right? But it's not reasonable to take up a full hour, right? You can hang out, sit around, see what other students' questions are, talk with them, collaborate. That's absolutely encouraged. But when you're sitting with Hayden, try to be mindful of everyone else's time, okay? Prerequisites, you've all covered the prerequisites, and this is the definition, the catalog description. This kind of changes as what we cover depends on how well we're doing on time, etc. We've really burned through our time. So gives us enough time to go through the syllabus at least. So this is the COVID-19 blurb. This is an in-person class, and if you are, let me do if it is this better. This is better. Okay, so if you're feeling ill for any reason, you're strongly advised to stay home and watch the recorded lecture. Regarding the recorded lectures, so although I'm recording right now, those might not be of the same quality as what's currently recorded on YouTube. So last year, what I did, I dedicated a lot of effort to record the lectures on specific topics using an overhead camera. And you know, if you saw them, and I do the derivations by hand on like a big notebook. Okay, so those are my forever lectures. So you can always refer to those. They are divided by topics in sequential order that we're going to cover in class. So in one lecture, I might cover 2.5 topics, right? But on YouTube, they're divided one topic at a time. Bernoulli equation, unsteady Bernoulli equation, you know, Bernoulli equation applied to channel flows. But in one lecture, I might cover all of those. But on YouTube, they are divided into small chunks, about 10, 15-minute lectures. So make sure, and I have the link to the YouTube in the syllabus and on the Canvas page. So make sure you look at those. I will keep recording as best we can as we go along this year. But the quality of the lectures already on YouTube are better than what you're going to see kind of recorded on the board, okay? This is going to be a handwritten class, so we're going to do the derivations by hand together, and you're going to have a chance to absorb the material as you write it on your notebooks, okay? If you have not been vaccinated for COVID-19, you are strongly advised to do so. The CDC also encourages you to wear a mask. This is the link to the CDC. You are requested to self-report any COVID-19 exposure, contact the tracing team if you're confused. Like if you think you've been exposed to someone, give them a call, tell them, hey, you know, this is what's going on. They may tell you, hey, go do asymptomatic testing or stay home a couple of days. My sister came from Lebanon about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And, you know, we were like, what are we going to do? And, you know, so 4 days after she came in, she had a sore throat. And then my son had a sore throat and fever. So we went all and got testing. Thankfully, it was negative. But, you know, it was like one of those things and made sure, you know, I told everyone around me we tried to. So, you know, that kind of stuff. So it was just a regular cold. Okay. I'm fine now. I do not have a. Okay, you are also advised to do the free weekly asymptomatic testing. That's the link. It's really easy to do. And there's this website, coronavirus.utah.edu. I don't know why it's not turning it into hyperlinks. Let me see. Okay, just turn them to hyperlinks. So this syllabus is alive. So it's a link to a Google document. I update it, it will update instantly on your end. So make sure you always follow the link. You can download it if you want, but I might do some changes as we go along. So it's best if you just follow the link and look at the latest version. And this is the list of what the university is recommending, is that you get vaccinated if you have not already done so. These are the resources where you can get the vaccine. It's really easy to do it. If you are not vaccinated, do get weekly asymptomatic testing. And this is again the link to the testing site. Oops. Oh. Okay. All right. Grading tentatively. I'm gonna do 20% homework, 35% on the exams, 2 exams. Quizzes, 5%, a project, 10%, and final exam, 30%. This might change. The exams might change this year as well. So we'll see, but they will only cover things that you learned in class, okay? You'll see by the end of the class, you're gonna learn that there are 2 types of problems that you can solve analytically by hand in fluid mechanics: Poiseuille type flow problem, or a Couette type flow problem, or a combination of both. And the strategy to solve those is really easy. All you have to do is say, you take a fluid mechanics problem, how can I turn it into a Poiseuille or Couette or a combination of both? That's what analytical methods allow you to do. Anything beyond that can get a little bit more complicated analytically, but then at that point we resort to dimensional analysis or just computational fluid dynamics, okay? The textbook, I do not, my general guideline for the test for the material is the Fluid Mechanics for Chemical Engineers by Wilkes. There might be a recent edition. It's available online for you for free at the Marriott Library. Just follow the link, okay? And you get to see all the content. I also use a lot of other texts, and I have provided all of those for you on the Canvas page. So if you go to Canvas, you go to Files, you're going to see reading material. You're going to see a bunch of directories. There's one for Fay, which is James Fay, great professor of fluid mechanics from MIT. He wrote one of the best books, introductory books on fluid mechanics. So there's all his, it's an out of print book, so you cannot even buy it. But I have a physical copy and I scanned it and I put those chapters in there for you. There's a Frank White, there's Munson, Young, and Okishi, and the BSL book. So I will assign reading materials from those as we go along. All the reading materials are up there on Canvas, but treat them with, this is fair use, okay? So we're sharing portions, specific chapters of the material. These books, many of them are out of print already, so just treat them with confidentiality and kindness per se. So keep them with you essentially and read them and study them, okay? There are a couple of other, the problem with fluid mechanics is that it is one of the most exciting phenomena on Earth. And it's like quantum mechanics. Nobody fully understands fluid mechanics exactly because it takes a lifetime to understand fluids, to develop the intuition for fluids. But at the same time, we all have some expertise in fluid mechanics. So for example, my son was trying to spray me with water the other day. He's 4 now, so he runs around faster and he grabs the garden hose and he runs after me. And so, when he opens the faucet, the water comes out, it just kind of drizzles down. So what he does to catch me, he kind of puts his finger a little bit on the hose and the water shoots out to hit me, okay? And he understands intuitively what's going on, right? You all understand that. That's what happens, you open the faucet and you like put your finger on it, it's gonna shoot out faster or at a longer distance. What we're gonna learn in this class is how to translate that little intuitive understanding into a framework, math, that we can use and apply to other problems as well. What's happening specifically in that situation is mass conservation. The same amount of mass has to go out through the pipe, okay? With a wider opening, some mass is coming out. If you close the opening to maintain the same mass quantity of material coming out, Water has to go faster. It has to go faster. There's no other way, right? To conserve the same amount of mass, per second, however many liters are coming out per second out of the hose. So what I can do in this class for you is, it's like I said, the intuition is going to take a lifetime, but the math can be done very quickly and easily. Okay, so what my goal in this class is to help you formulate the mathematics for any problem, any fluids problem, and then develop intuition from the math. And as you learn more and more about new fluid phenomena, then you can develop more and more intuition and master fluid mechanics. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. So that means you need to be somewhat good in math. Okay, we're going to cover a review of vector calculus and these things. Unlikely we're going to do tensors. I've been trying to avoid tensors my entire life, and I don't think we need tensors. So we're going to be focused a lot on vector stuff. Once we nail that through the first few lectures, then we can push on applying this math to these fluid mechanics. Okay, we'll hold 3 exams, 2 midterm exams, and the final exam. We will have regular quizzes as needed, so those are just kind of ad hoc. If I have time to prepare for the quiz, I'll come and we do a quiz on Canvas. It's more of a qualitative understanding, like just simple questions of things we discussed in class, of material we covered in class, material I asked you to read. Okay, and don't lose sleep over it. I want you to learn. I don't care about your grade. If I want an A, I'll give you an A, but I'd rather you come out learning something from this class. Okay, so the purpose of these quizzes is to test your just qualitative knowledge of the material. Okay, homework, we will have about 6 to 8 assignments as we go along. Okay, last year I used to request that they are typeset because it was difficult to understand the handwriting of everyone. And so, like, I have some students who write like doctors, like medical doctors. There's like a squiggle. I'm like, oh. So, but this year I'm relaxing that constraint. I know there's so much pressure on all of you. So submit your homework however you like. Just please try to be as legible as you can. Okay. If you are confused about it, typeset it. If you feel like, this might not be legible, we'll try to reach out to you and tell you, look, we didn't, what do you mean by this term? Or is this a 4 or a P or a pi, But you can submit your homework however you like. It has to be scanned, however, and uploaded on Canvas. Okay? Make sense? Okay. There will be so this is the late policy, 1 day late, 10%, then, 2 days, 25, and then another 25, and then another 100. Okay? If you have an issue, you need a few extra days, just shoot me an email. Typically, I provide you with a couple of courtesies throughout the semester as needed, because things happen in life. You get a flat tire, or I don't know, someone gets ill, etc. Definitely come talk to me. There's tremendous flexibility there. Okay. Projects, we will do projects, 2 to 4 students. I'd like to pick projects relevant to your research. And I can already see some projects forming in my mind. At least I know for your project, Sam, yeah, something on atmospheric flows potentially, something like flow around the city, or dispersion of a pollutant, something like that, or wildfire related thing. So we don't do the wildfire, we do a smoke coming out, right? So something like that. I would be interested in. Surprisingly, so we had a fire last week in Lambs Canyon, right? And we saw a lot of smoke. Everyone thought that the smoke was coming from that fire. Whereas no, it was coming from California, right? So maybe you can show us that. But that would be like a 10-person project, okay? So, but start thinking about, what you want to do, right? So as for those who are new to the department and you're looking for advisors, etc., it's like you go into a parking lot filled with new vehicles, and it's up to you to choose a new vehicle for free. Okay, so you have now the flexibility to choose a research project, to choose something that you're passionate about doing, okay? And that also pays the bills, right? So you got to balance that, right? So start thinking about what you want to do, what's in a problem that you're interested in that you can potentially model as a fluid. Think again about my example with the orchestra. It was viruses. How on earth are fluids involved, right? You might be surprised how fluid mechanics can be involved in your projects, okay? Let's see, we have about 5 more minutes. Okay, now we start drilling into the course objectives. There's a lot more objectives than these 6, but let me go through these 6 and then we'll call it a day. So I hope that after completing the course, you will be able to do the following. 1, specify governing equations and boundary conditions for fluid flow problems. So this is the single most important step you need to do when you are dealing with any engineering problem, engineering science problem that involves fluid mechanics. What are the governing equations? What are the boundary conditions? Well, the governing equations are going to be the Navier-Stokes equations. So you'll be able to write those down immediately, okay? Boundary conditions are going to be interesting. Like, what is important in this problem? Is this little vent over there, are these vents important? You know, is this little, see this little barrier over here? Maybe I feel cooler if I stand here, but there's this little barrier in front of this vent. You know, is this going to matter? What boundary conditions are going to be important? Is this door making a difference? I don't know. There is very little air going through. There's very little air exchange going through. So whether I open it or not, it might not matter. Okay, so that's what you're going to be able to tell by the end of the semester, I hope. Next would be simplify the governing equations, which are the Navier-Stokes, as applied to your particular problem. So you might say, you know, there's not a significant gradient in one direction for the flow, or there's not significant diffusion in the vertical direction. Someone dealing with atmospheric flows, you have large disparities in distances. So you might be looking at the atmospheric boundary layer over very long distances. So the vertical might not be as important as, you know, the longitudinal or vice versa. So you'll be able to make those assumptions and simplify the governing equations so that you get a simpler set of the equations. Are really difficult to solve, okay? You will see they're very complicated. So any chance at simplifying them is gonna help you potentially solve your problem cheaper, okay? Calculate velocity distributions for simple flows and find forces using analytical methods. So this goes down. Can you simplify your problem to either Couette or Poiseuille flow type or a combination of both, and calculate the velocity field? Okay, so, and we'll define what that means when we say calculate the velocity field. Use physical intuition in conjunction with the governing partial differential equations to obtain analytical solutions that predict the effect of experimental parameters on laminar flows occurring in practical engineering problems. That's a long sentence. I probably need to reduce it. What this is saying is, now that you know how to do the equations, what if you want to do an experiment? What is important? Can you tell what parameters are important for that experiment? And there's a way to do that from the governing equations themselves, okay, to help you say, you know, I only need to test over these couple of things and we'll be fine. Or you write the equations in dimensionless form, and then you can tell which terms are important and which terms are not, okay? Analyze and interpret the results, and finally describe and explain the introductory concepts of turbulent flows, non-Newtonian fluids, and CFD. So by the end of the semester, we're gonna cover turbulent flows like you've never learned turbulent flows. I come at turbulent flows from a computational perspective. You cannot do turbulence without thinking of computational fluid dynamics, period. Okay, so you can try to understand turbulence, etc., but any formulation of turbulent flows is going to have in mind computational fluid dynamics in it. So I come at it from the CFD perspective, and expose what it means. So, you know, we'll spend 2-3 lectures on that, and, you know, hopefully just get you introduced to turbulent flows and non-Newtonian fluids, etc. Okay, and in the rest of the syllabus, There's all sorts of important things that you need to look at, addressing sexual misconduct. If there's a case or harassment, etc. This explains to you the strategy, or you can come and talk to me in confidence. I'll point you in the right direction, okay? Academic misconduct, about issues of cheating. I doubt any one of you is interested in doing, these silly little things. You're here to learn. I trust you, and I'm going to treat you as an adult and as a future colleague, okay? You're going to become a doctor in a few years, okay? All of you. So, and finally, this is the tentative schedule, okay? So today we are here. So it's tentative, it's evolving, but this gives you an idea of what we're gonna cover, okay? With the reading assignment. If I were you, I would be ahead of Professor Saad. Go and read what I'm gonna talk about, listen to my lectures, and come to class and see it again, hear it again, and then you don't even have to worry about it, okay? It will sink in, okay? Thank you so much. Pleasure to meet you, everyone. Okay, Godspeed, be safe, and we will see you. I'll see you on Wednesday, okay?